Hey guys, Amir again with the second of today's Premier League previews. This time we're going to be focusing on Aston Villa, managed by Tim Sherwood. So before we get anywhere else, let's look at where they've been last season. So Aston Villa last season finished 17th, just above the drop zone. They finished on 38 points. They were just above Hull City, who were on 35. And above them, it was Sunderland, also on 38, and then Newcastle on 39. As far as the cups were concerned, they finished runners-up in the FA Cup final. They played against Arsenal. They didn't do well there. And then they made it to the second round of the League Cup, and that was it. As far as what they're hoping for this season, I would say Aston Villa's main objective this year would be just not to get involved in another relegation battle, although with some of the transfer business they've done, they might just be lucky enough to stay up. So really their objective depends on what happens between now and the end of the transfer window. If they don't do that much business, then staying up would be an achievement. If they do some significant business, then they're going to want to avoid a relegation battle and finish mid-table. So then let's have a look at some of their transfer activity. So who's come into Aston Villa this summer? Scott Sinclair's made his loan move from Man City permanent for a fee of about £2.5 million. And Micah Richards has joined on a free from Man City as well. Mark Bunn has joined on a free from Norwich. Idrissa Gueye has joined from Lille for a fee of about £9 million. And Jordan Amavi has joined from Nice for a fee of about £9 million. So all in all, I'd say Sinclair was already there last season for the second half of it, so I wouldn't count Sinclair too much. Richards is a solid addition. I think he's an underrated centre back. I think he had a couple of good years at Man City, and he was unlucky to be pushed out of the team. Bunn is going to be a backup goalkeeper, let's be honest, so shouldn't be too much of an important transfer. Idrissa Gueye is a highly rated defensive midfielder in France, and so I feel like he might just be crucial to their fortunes next season. I don't know too much about him, but to what I've heard, he's highly rated. And then Jordan Amavi I've seen play once or twice, and every time I've been impressed, he's a solid left back and a good signing for them, in my opinion. So then we've got transfers out, and this is this difficult one for them. I'm speaking on the Wednesday, July the 22nd, just before midnight here in California, and at this point, Christian Benteke completed his move to Liverpool for £32.5 million. They met his release clause. That's their top goal scorer gone. 13 goals last season, gone. Fabian Delph went to Man City for about £8 million. So again, one of their captain, one of their key players, gone. Shay Given, gone. Ron Vlaar left on a free. So that's like a spine of a team right there. And then beyond that, they've also had other people leave, such as Antonio Luna, Nicholas Helenius, Matthew Loughton, Jakuba Silla, Andreas Wyman, Darren Bed, and Stevens, Graham Burke. I mean, a lot of these people didn't contribute too much last season, or the season before for that matter, but some of them are decent players, and so Villa are going to feel some loss from that. Especially, I think, Wyman, Delph, Benteke, and Vlaar. And so I think that's going to harm them a lot for next season. As far as the manager, Tim Sherwood replaced Paul Lambert on February the 11th this year. So for the last 12 matches of the season, under Sherwood, the team picked up 1.33 points per match over the last 12 matches of the season, compared with about 0.85 points per match under Paul Lambert. So there's a significant improvement after he took over. I would say Sherwood's track record as a manager, although limited, is impressive. He did really well at Tottenham, even though most people thought of him as Harry Redknapp reincarnate and a bit of a clown. He did a really good job there, and then he was unlucky to lose his job, and he did a decent job keeping Villa up. So as far as I'm concerned, he is a young manager, but he is not a bad manager. I think he has the potential to be a good one, although I don't think he's as good as his opinion of himself. So that's the manager covered. Looking at the squad, in preseason, Tim Sherwood's been playing a 4-4-1-1 formation. So we're probably looking at Brad Guzan in goal, Alan Hutton at right back, partnership of Micah Richards and Ciaran Clark in centre back, and then new signing Jordan Amavi at left back. Then in midfield, you're probably looking at something like a combination of Scott Sinclair on the right, and then in midfield, you would probably have Idrissa Gueye and Ashley Westwood, and then you'd have Jack Grealish on the other side, and then in the hole behind the striker, you would have right now Carlos Hill, who is supposedly going to get more of a chance this season, according to Sherwood, and then up front you'd have Gabriel Bonlahor. And as you can probably tell from this is a team that's in serious trouble. Uh, so let's start with the positives, though. Standout players. For me, Jordan Amavi is a good left back. The times I've seen him, I know he's a new signing. I know it might be hard for him to settle, but I think he's going to be a good player for them next season. I'd also keep an eye on Idrissa Gueye, even though I haven't seen him play before. He's highly rated in France, and a defensive midfielder with his sheer physical ability, in my opinion, will do well in the Premier League. He's 25 years old, and he's coming from Lille, so that's the same place that the former Newcastle midfielder Yohan Cabaye came from, and I think he did pretty well. So they have a good track record. While Gueye isn't a massive player, he's also very technically gifted and pretty solid physically as well, even though he's a little bit short. So from that perspective, I think he's going to be an important player for them. And then, of course, they're going to be reliant on two relatively young talents in Carlos Hill and Jack Grealish. And that's tough because it's also a challenge for them to have young players produce regularly. And then as far as the weak links in the team are, Alan Hutton is the first one that comes to my mind. As a right back, he's decent, he's not great, and he has terrible games from time to time. So that's somewhere I think they need to improve for sure. Beyond that, some depth at center back might not be a bad idea for them. And then in addition, I could think they also need another defensive midfielder, because honestly, I don't think Ashley Westwood's good enough. And then probably a striker to replace Benteke, at least one, maybe two, because they've lost a lot of goals. So yeah, that's what I think the weak links look like. Then we've got the strength of the team. So this is a hard one. I think the strength of this team is really going to be the manager, because Aston Villa as a squad don't really have anything that makes stand out that you would say, okay, that's really good, and that's their strength. Like Arsenal had pace. Aston Villa don't have anything like that. So I would say that Aston Villa's big strength is Tim Sherwood, and some people don't like Tim Sherwood. They would say, why would you say that? Because he's a really good motivational man. And that means that he can get performance out of players that most managers can't. So even though his squad isn't as capable as most in the Premier League, I think he'll get more out of them than they probably would give another manager. As far as challenges, their squad, as I just said, especially up front. They right now have two mainline strikers in Gabriel Bonlahor and Libor Kotzak, and that's not good enough. Neither of these players is going to get you enough goals to stay in the Premier League. Like Bonlahor's decent, Kotzak's decent, but they're not good enough to be your starting strikers if you're Aston Villa. Similarly, another area that I guess you could say is going to be a challenge for them in the team is going to be at right back. As I've already said before, Alan Hutton is not good enough, and so from that perspective, they're in trouble there. And defensive midfielder, this is a team whose biggest challenge is probably going to end up being their own lack of quality and their own lack of, I would say, proven Premier League experience. Because a lot of the players they have, if they've been in the Premier League for a while, haven't proven themselves very well. And if they haven't been in the Premier League, then they have no experience to begin with. So I think it's going to be tough from them from that perspective as well. They've had relegation battles before, but they've shed a lot of experience from those. And so I think that's going to be a big challenge for them to overcome. Aston Villa are going to definitely be fighting relegation. Either they'll be well clear of it, or they'll be right in the battle. But ultimately, Aston Villa are not going to be too far clear of the drop zone in the upcoming season unless Tim Sherwood works some sort of miracle in the transfer market. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let me know. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much.